even with those confrontational moments, President Trump ultimately did back an agreement that reaffirmed the strength of the NATO alliance, and he praised the U.S. relationship with Germany, but only after a day of diplomatic drama that now has some critics concerned about how the rest of the trip will go.
At a summit that's supposed to symbolize solidarity, President Trump's tough talk went over like a lead balloon before this cocktail chat with Germany's leader, a blistering breakfast.
Germany is totally controlled by Russia.
Characteristically combative, the president derided a controversial pipeline deal between Germany and Russia.
Germany, as far as I'm concerned, is captive to Russia because it's getting so much of its energy from Russia.
Merkel, dismissive, responded Germany is in control of its own decisions. The president also demanded allies double what they pay into their own defense budgets from 2% to 4%. Not even the U.S. hits that goal.
Pledge increasing defense spending to 2%. And let's start with that.
Joining the president, his team of top advisors, like Chief of Staff John Kelly, who appeared annoyed at points. The White House clarifying it's because he'd hoped for a full breakfast and only cheese and pastries were offered. Defense Secretary James Mattis is in Brussels, too. The Pentagon says the secretary looked forward to productive talks today. But multiple sources tell NBC News Mattis has actually been worried the president might make tensions worse with military partners. That worry extends to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are looking ahead to Monday's meeting between the president and Vladimir Putin, who's worked to undermine the alliance.
I'm very concerned that we have a rough meeting with NATO and then some kind of conciliatory meeting with Putin, and it works against our country's national interest.
While a joint declaration by all NATO nations, including the U.S., takes aim at Russia's aggressive actions, it's not clear how the president will handle Putin one-on-one. The risk? Irritating friends while looking friendly with their enemy. Hallie Jackson, NBC News, Brussels.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.